In 1994, we had spent a whole century trying to liberate Africa from these invaders. And the last country to be free was South Africa in 1994. I'm glad to say that although the revolutionaries in Uganda arrived on the scene late, from 1989, we were able to give serious support to the ANC of South Africa and the PSC in the form of military training, logistics, educational opportunities, etc. Africa had therefore, as the century of shame for African continent, where the whole of it had been colonized and a half a millennium of plunder by the European and Arabs with the slave trade, come to an end, become free. Africa had become free. Uhuru, freedom had come. The question was, where is Umoja? Because you remember, it was Uhuru na Umoja. Uhuru came. Now the question was, where is Umoja? Umoja for economic prosperity through economic integration in order to create big markets to support the efforts of the African wealth creators, and Umoja for political integration where possible to create strategic security for the black race on land, in the air, at sea, and in space. Yes, some of the efforts for economic integration have moved. I worked with Mzee Moi, Mzee Mwinyi, Mzee Mkapa to revive the East African community. You remember this community had broken up. So when we came into government, immediately we started working with Mzee Moi, Mzee Mwinyi, later on Mkapa. We brought it back. 1999. I salute Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, Somalia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo for joining the East African community. Let us fully implement the Charter of the East African community and the roadmap, as His Excellency Mr. President Ruto was reporting. How about COMESA and the CFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area? Some actors seem to treat this integration as optional. In my view, I have always held that it is mandatory to unite or risk perpetual marginalization. How about political integration? In the case of East Africa, we the Pan-Africanists have never relented. Ever since the student days in the 1960s, we have been struggling for that integration, supporting our elder Pan-Africanists, Mwalimu Nyerere, Abeid Karume, Kenneth Kaunda, Arap Moi, etc. With Mzee Kibaki, Mzee Mkapa, Prince Kagame, Prince Nkurunziza, we called for the fast tracking of the federation in the year 2014. However, on account of the awkwardness of the African Revolution, seeing what is happening in much of Africa, instead of Uhuru na Umoja, in many countries, in many areas, we have got Uhuru na Uhasama. Is it Uhasama? Discord. Mnaona Kiswahili changu? Msinichezee. So instead of Uhuru na Umoja, we have Uhuru na Uhasama, freedom and discord. In Uganda, we have a Uganda proverb. It goes like this. Ekitata muhima tekimumala konte. In English, it means that if a Muhima, one of the tribes in Uganda, does not die, even if he loses cattle on account of his dedication to cattle keeping, he will do everything possible to get new cattle. Africa is still there. Although we have lost opportunities, but we can catch up. What is the consequence of Uhuru na Uhasama? Uhuru na Uhasama instead of Uhuru na Umoja. Economic stagnation and the suffering of the populations. What is generating the migration of the African youth that are dying in the Mediterranean Sea going to Europe? It is the narrowness of the money economy of Africa that does not create necessary jobs. One of the consequences of not fully integrating our markets, investors get frustrated when they cannot export within even the East African community. The GDP of Africa today, the GDP of the whole of Africa is US dollars 3.6 trillion. The whole of Africa, Africa yote, the GDP is 3.6 trillion. That of the USA is US dollars 31.82 trillion. The GDP of USA is bigger than the one of Africa, more than 10 times. China is now 20.6 trillion. India is US dollars 4.18 trillion. Even little South Korea has got a GDP of US dollars 1.86 trillion. One may ask, why does the little South Korea have the that GDP size? One factor is that South Korea, because of the Cold War politics, benefited a lot from the USA market. However, in our Uganda language we say, Omugo oguli kumulirano tegobango. The stick in the neighbor's house will not help you to scare away the leopard. If the leopard comes to attack you, you are not going to say, I get a stick from the neighbor to chase the leopard. You must have your own stick in your own house. You need your own stick in your own house. You have seen Mr. Trump recently threatening tariffs on South Korea and others. The question we need to ask is, does size of the domestic market matter in terms of attracting investments, domestic or foreign? Because we have got economists, professors, what have you, they are very many. But I think the size of the market matters. The size of your market matters. Why? China opened up its economy in 1978, when many of the African countries were already under the pastoralism of the World Bank and the IMF, were already investing, implementing structural adjustment, all those things, etc. The Chinese are still communists. Chinese are communists. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. Yet the economy has attracted US dollars 2.7 trillion from outside since 1978. While the whole of Africa has attracted US dollars 1.8 trillion. The GDP of China in 1978 was US dollars 149 billion. 149 billion, that's what it was in 1978, the GDP of China. It is now US dollars 20.6 trillion. India opened up in the year 1991. Since that time, it has attracted US dollars 1.2 trillion in foreign investments. By that time, the GDP of India was US dollars 270 billion, small. India's GDP is now US dollars 4.18 trillion. The three richest countries in the world today are all big countries, big land mass and big population. When we look for foreign markets, the reliable core market is the internal one. It is guaranteed. The richest countries are the USA, China, and India. I appeal to the youth of East Africa, to go back to Uhuru na Umoja. Recently, I met some Gen Z from Kenya. They came to Uganda. that they are experts in organizing riots. And they had come to Uganda to give technical support. To the Ugandan Gen Z, how to riot. But some among the Ugandans said, but you people, why don't you go and see this old man? So these children came. The ones from Uganda and from Kenya, they came. So we are experts in riots. I said, okay, I can join you. But what are we rioting for? They said corruption, what? I said, okay, but even if there was no corruption, if you don't address the issues of structure, if you have got a small market, even if there is no corruption, how will the economy expand? So I said, why don't you go and talk about East African issues? So I told His Excellency, I am here with your Gen Z. So I gave them some transport and they went back. I appeal to the youth. I appeal to the youth of East Africa to go back to Uhuru na Umoja. This Uhuru na Uhasama is really a disaster. I had the Last Supper with Mwalimu in a house near here in Arusha. Mr. Butiku and Mr. Marwa Adam were present. When I arrived for the dinner, I saw a Tanzanian girl who spoke Chihaya, whom I knew, standing on the veranda waiting for me. She was one of Mwalimu's aides. I greeted her in the Chihaya, which is close to the dialects of Uganda. Wabonaki, I said. She answered, Tinka boine kantushana na boneiwe. Abahaya mwachurra. Mwachurra echo. The greeting is in the form of a question. The question is, what have you seen? The answer is, I have seen nothing special except you now. Then I asked, Nokorono Mugurusi, you work with Mzee these days? Her answer was yes. Mwalimu overheard us. He asked, Mnasema lugha gani? Mwalimu asked us, he didn't know. What language are you speaking? I explained to Mwalimu that all the dialects up to Mwanza are close to Runyankore, my dialect. I was surprised Mwalimu did not know that. Even the Kisukuma, Chinyamwezi, and other dialects in Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, DRC are close to the dialects of Uganda. Swahili contains a lot of words from the dialects of Bara kule kwetu, huko ndani, inland Africa. What God has put together, man shall not put asunder. It says in the book of Mark, chapter 10, verse 9. During that Last Supper with Mwalimu, here in Arusha, I was discussing with him the very issues I'm telling you now. God bless you.
Wow, that is President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, the President of Uganda, addressing the East African Community Summit. As you heard, family, brothers and sisters, President Museveni insisting the unity among our East African nations, of course, the entire continent of Africa. Museveni has spoken that when African countries attained independence, they have one slogan, Uhuru and Umoja. It means a unity and freedom, or we can say independence and freedom. But right now we have freedom and fight. So Africa must end freedom and fight. Right now we are fighting each other, as you see in the East African community. Rwanda, Burundi, and Congo are not at peace. So there's a need for Africans or African countries to have peace, to unite, and of course to speak with one voice. The way leaders such as Nyerere, Nkrumah, Kenneth Kaunda, Mandela addressed Africa that we need to have independence. At the same time, we need to have unity. So if we have unity, we can solve a lot of challenges. Right now, you see, we are suffering with instability in our continent. If you go to Somalia, the same. If you go to Sahel, you have seen what has happened. If you go to Democratic Republic of Congo, there's no peace. So this is our time for Africa to have peace. If we don't find peace, all the things that we desire will not come true. So family, let us not speak for too long. I'm just adding from what President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has said, but all in all, Museveni has spoken very well. We need to be superior on the land, or I mean on the ground, on the space, on the air, on water, the way we see right now United States of America. But United States of America, it didn't become great. Maybe one day they see that there's a need for them to unite, they united, and that's why we call it United States of America. And then they find some ways, what can we do as a united? What can we achieve as a united? That's what they did. So family, brothers and sisters, after that, you have no more to share. If you have something to share with us, please do so through the comment section. Have a nice time. See you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Africa, Mama Africa.